Chapter 14. Food Pyramid. The Dada has nicely explained the advisable order of food preference for those who would like to elevate themselves in the context of compassionate consideration to other life forms and environment sustainability. A seeker asks, everything we eat, may be vegetables, fruits or eggs, meat, etc., all are alive. Hence, please advise us what discretion one should apply in the choice of various alternatives to eat and drink. The Dada says, whatever is edible has life in it. One cannot consume inert matter. Even animals do not eat lifeless things. The soul resides in every living being. If you hurt any living being, you will incur liability for the hurt and violence that you cause. As a result, your spiritual progress is hindered because the layers of ignorance will multiply. This leads to more misery in return for the one causing such suffering to other life forms. The Dada explains that there are different categories of food considering the extent of suffering experienced by the life form being consumed by us. Because any action creates a matching reaction in the scheme of Mother Nature, it is advisable to exercise discretion in choice of food so as to manage the boom-ranging effect of one's action in a way that causes least plausible suffering returning to one. From this point of consideration, the human flesh is the worst and most harmful because human being suffers most when killed, as it has a developed body with all five senses and mind evolved much more than other life forms. Then comes animal meat. In this category, however, it is better to consume the flesh of the species whose population increases rapidly, such as chicken, fish, or duck, as opposed to eating beef and the meat of such animals whose population does not increase rapidly. Eating eggs is better than eating meat. It is pertinent to note here, for those who have been nourished on the milk of a vegetarian mother are likely to face serious health disorders also if they resort to meat consumption. But those who want to further progress in the path towards compassionate and environmental sustainability coupled with inner development should keep away from meat and eggs and instead consume edible roots such as carrots, beet, potatoes, etc. And to those who want to progress even further, the Dada advises to avoid even these and consume only foods such as breads, whole grain, sweets, milk and milk products. And for inner and spiritual progress beyond this, one would require avoidance of any foods containing sugar, ghee, butter, honey, yogurt, cream, etc. In this case, people should eat only rice, lentils, and vegetables, which is the ideal diet. Foods are categorized in this manner, and anyone can choose the category of his preference. The descriptions of the different categories are given to enhance one's knowledge and are not for the purpose of enforcement. These distinctions are there to break the veils of ignorance obscuring one's pure consciousness. The Dada says, a living being that doesn't get frightened or scared could be taken as food. All these single sense living entities such as vegetables, grains, rice, etc., do not get frightened because they are in a latent state, and that is why they don't feel pain. So, these single sense entities are the best choice to be consumed as food. All other living entities having more than one sense, such as ants, birds, animals, all get frightened when you even touch them, so refrain from killing them. Everyone can rightfully consume single sense entities like plants and its products such as vegetables and fruits provided by Mother Nature. Dada says that it is alright to consume milk and milk products. He says food should be consumed for sustaining the body, but one should not waste it just for fun. Dada says, all these food grains we eat are living entities. When you sow them in soil, and if watered, they sprout and come out as a plant. So anything that sprouts is a living entity. If you sow a grain of rice, it won't sprout, because there is no life any longer after dehusking and processing. But all other grains are alive. The wheat grains, while on the plant or after harvesting, have a life therein. If wheat grain is sown, then it will grow into a new plant. When you sow those grains after 4 to 5 years, then they may not grow, as they won't be living any longer. In every seed, there is an individual life, soul, lying within. When you eat fruits, then there is no soul in the whole fruit, but it lies in the seeds of that fruit. So, the great man of wisdom recommends eating fruits, but not destroying their seeds. Dada recommends eating more sprouted beans, as it provides a high level of nutrition and vitamins. Okay. Such healthy food is rare to find in these times, hence can be freely consumed. You can even boil pulses like chickpea and have them. The great men with wisdom have not said anything against eating single sense living beans, grains, pulses, vegetables, milk and milk products, etc., which do not have flesh and pus. Single sense living beings can be freely eaten for sustenance of one's life. We cannot live without having food. No doubt it is a violence to destroy any living entity, even for food. However, one can sustain oneself with minimal violence by exercising one's discretion to the level of having only a single sense living entity in one's food. Taking away the life of an entity no doubt creates a liability on one, but here one can exercise a wise discretion of incurring minimum liability. Albeit it is not feasible to rise beyond this in the practice of subtle non-violence and compassionate living. Dada explains that as a human being, one has a balance of so much merit karmas to one's credit. When one eats those single sense living entities such as grains, fruits or vegetables, a portion of one's credit goes away as a share of those entities consumed by one for their further evolution after that life. On the other hand, the human being who is sustained by that food too could earn further merit karmas by leading a virtuous life. For example, one having such a single sense entities in one's food earns performing a good deed and earns, say, 50 points. Then 10 points would get transferred to the credit of the entity one consumed. So one still is left with 40 points. And the entity so consumed and getting credit of 10 points, merit karma, from that person would elevate from being single sensed to 2 sense, touch and taste senses of their further evolution path. So it goes on, like the mutually benefiting chain of evolution. Other living entities in the lower realm earn merits by being used up. True merits earned by humans this way both get mutually compensated and balanced. Such science is not properly understood by people, isn't it so? Eggs. A fellow asks Dadaji, there are 2 types of eggs, eggs with life and eggs without life. Can you please elaborate on this? Dadaji explains, people argue that there are eggs which are lifeless. I tell them that it is impossible to eat anything that is non-living. You cannot eat anything that is lifeless. If eggs did not contain life, they would be considered inanimate and therefore inedible. That fellow asks again, but these eggs do not develop into a chick. Dadaji answers, that is a different matter, but there is indeed a life latent in them. Food that does not contain life may satisfy hunger, but it does not have any nutritional value, and it will not nourish and sustain the body in a true sense. An egg does not run away, but the life contained within the egg is in a dormant state of 5 senses lying unconscious, like a human embryo. Whether or not it hatches into a chicken is a different matter. Even the human fetus at 4 or 5 weeks in the same state as the egg, so better we do not harm the egg. Milk. A fellow asks Dadaji to shed light on milk and milk products. Dadaji explains, you can consume milk and milk products with no hesitation. There are no restrictions. You can make puddings and sweets from milk and relish. Go ahead and enjoy them, but take care not to overindulge in this too. The fellow asks, but nature had intended the milk for the calves and not for us. Is it true? Dadaji says, this is not true. Only the calves of the wild cows and wild buffaloes drink all their mother's milk. People, however, feed and nurture cows so well that both the calves and the humans can benefit from the increase in that cow's milk, much beyond her calf's need. This has been the practice from times immemorial. If you feed a cow well, it can produce up to 15 liters of milk a day, which is more than the normal amount of milk. So you would not be depriving the calf of its share and letting it go hungry. Dogmatism in food. Dadaji says that whatever the men with great wisdom have said is intended for your understanding and not to be followed dogmatically. You should conduct yourself in such a way that your benefits are greater than your losses. But you should stop if your losses are greater than your gains. They do not tell you to be rigid and exceed your limits in food habits. There is no need for people to boast about being pure vegetarian. One should not take pride in being pure vegetarian, nor should one criticize those who are not. So Meat eaters should not annoy you. It is merely your prejudice. You should not have any problem with those for whom such a diet is. On the contrary, when a person is forced to give up things one enjoys, one will constantly think about them, instead of thinking about one's inner and spiritual development.